This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. You ever notice that it's the weakest among us physically, the least capable among us who always want to flap their wings and puff their chests and call for civil war? Those who would be least capable of actually picking up a weapon and going to war love to chirp and chirp and chirp about how it's becoming our only option to go to war one with another. Your Tim Pools and your Greg Gutfelds. Greg Gutfeld used to be the liberal on Fox News when he hosted his Red Eye, whatever. And he has become a guaranteed purveyor of propaganda and hate and nonsense on Fox News on his stupid late night show, like trying to compete with Jimmy Kimmel or something. The unfunny that he is. But he's also on the 5, where he's backed up by Jesse Waters, another virulent racist, and the other trolls. I mean, save Jessica Tarloff or whatever token liberal they have on at any given time. It is just a dais replete with assholes. I'm going to play this clip for you where he waxes authoritarian about how the only thing we have left, it may be the only thing, the only choice, the only way out of this morass that we're in relative to the United States and the current climate of crime or whatever else, education, is civil war, is to separate one from another via violence. I'm going to play the clip. There's a lot that he says, and then we'll address some of the most dangerous things and maybe why he's saying it on the other side.
But only certain people get criminal mulligans. And January 6 protesters, they don't get criminal mulligans. And here's why. They're the oppressor, right? So the oppressed get criminal mulligans. The people that are complaining, like us, we're actually oppressors, and we're losing power. So that's why we're upset. I just got a job at MSNBC. But let's compare the rights between criminals and victims. Okay, the criminals, they get a mulligan. They get to steal up to $900 worth of stuff. They can loiter, sleep, and shoot up in public areas, including playgrounds. They can loot and burn and call it social justice. They can pile up dozens of arrests and never do time. Meanwhile, what about us? Well, we have to change our lives to accommodate risk wherever we go. We have to move out of cities for the sake of the safety of our families and our own safety. That's what's happening. We're being driven out of cities by the oppressed. So I return to my imperfect analogy from yesterday. We had a war over slavery. We knew slavery was inhumane and immoral, but somehow we couldn't solve slavery peacefully. It was an evil. But one side refused to acknowledge that it was evil because it was too big of an admission for them to make. Doesn't that feel that way now? That this defiant refusal to reverse this decline argues against the survival of a country. What does that leave you with? It leaves you with you need to make war to bring peace, because you have a side that cannot change, because then that means an admission that their beliefs have been corrupt all the time. So in a way, you have to force them to surrender.
Or we could make love, not war.
I tried that once.
Or we have an election.
I had to go to a doctor.
Right. Elections. Yeah.
No, elections don't work. We know that. We know they don't work.
They do work.
Look what we have. Look what we have.
But
we had a moderate president, and we have crime exploding everywhere. We had a Democrat president promised that he was going to be moderate, promised that he was going to unite the country. And now we have a terrible education system. We have no border. We have crime everywhere. Every facet of society is in peril and in chaos because our elections don't matter.
No, elections do matter. We don't need to go to war for it. We go to the election booth and vote the people out who don't do the things you say.
There's a lot here, a lot that's wrong and dangerous about what was just said on Fox News. And he still has a job. These aren't just differences of opinion and different ideas. He's advocating because our elections don't work, because their guy lost. And did he call? His points were all over the place, so it's hard to really track and follow exactly what he was saying. But he said we had a moderate president. Is he referring to Donald John Trump as a moderate president? And now that Donald John Trump, the moderate president, has been beaten in an election, a free and fair, settled American election, they don't like the outcome. The only next step is civil war. And then they show on screen as a fashion of propaganda to strike fear into the hearts and the minds of their aging audience, isolated incidents of crime in Philadelphia or maybe here in Washington, D.C., things that just don't impact the lives of the vast majority of people. Isolated incidents, while scary and wrong, aren't the norm. They're not catching on everywhere. And they're certainly not something to fight a civil war over, a civil war in which Greg Gutfeld will certainly not take part. The coward, rich boy, living in his penthouse in New York City. Same with Tim Pool. But to so aggressively and vociferously state unequivocally that elections don't work, how do they not work? Never explained that. It's just a lot of fear-mongering. These people are cowards. He knows that what he's saying is incorrect. It's a lie. It's propaganda. It's dangerous. And he says it anyway because he knows they're losing the ideological fight on the right. Losing it in grand fashion. So when you're losing the ideological fight, what's the next step you have to enter into? Promoting the idea of civil war, violence against citizen. And to invoke the issue of slavery, come on, Greg. Who is it that still waves Confederate flags now? Is it the Democrats? Or is it Trump supporters and Republicans who are constantly banging on about it's heritage, not hate? It is indeed hate. When you're repping the one side that wanted to keep the institution of slavery, of human ownership, as law of the land, it's hate. And save it if you're one of those people who want to tell me that, well, it was just the way of the world at the time. Because it wasn't. I've read from John Adams' biography written by David McCullough, where in 1758, Samuel Adams, his cousin, John Adams' cousin, was given a little girl as a gift, a human being as a gift, property, and he immediately set her free. No slave will live under my roof. There were many people at the time, contemporaries of our founders, even at our founding, not just the time of the Civil War, which we had, another 50 years or so, 60, 70 years or so to get our shit together and understand morality. And further, there was a whole nother group who knew it was wrong to own human beings, and they were slaves. But one side refused to acknowledge it was evil. Which side was that? Yes, it was the party of the Democrats, but because of the Southern strategy, come on, we've covered this. It's always the weakest who knee-jerk to civil war and violence, and then advocate for others to commit that violence in their name. Your Donald Trumps, your Donald Trump Jr.'s, your Greg Gutfelds, your Tim Pools, these weak, cowardly simps. What do you think? As always, I would invite your participation in this conversation. We can mix it up in the comments. You can also call. Leave me a brief voicemail. Keep them brief, please. 714-576-4054. Of course, you can always email me, as always, daily at dollemore.com. If you appreciate what I do, if I'm your flavor of political commentator, please consider supporting what we do here, growing this show, and you can contribute on a monthly basis. Click the join button below, become a channel member for $2 a month, hit the super thanks button, or go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, all of them at Dollemore. I'd love to see you there. I want to hear from you on this. I'll see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.